I think we should talk about the right and why they hate. I was going to say why they hate, but the right and MLK, because we've seen lately this push from some to disavow MLK and some of the things he has said or done, and maybe, I don't want to say rewrite history, but change the perception among the American public about MLK.
We note in our piece that Kirk describes King as, quote, a bad guy. It's true.
Can you guys see that video?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
And Kirk described very, very radical view that the country made a mistake when it passed the Civil Rights Act. Also true. As we note in the piece, Kirk has previously described Kirk as a hero and a civil rights icon. It's true. I used to be wrong. What inspired Kirk to shift his view on MLK? Why does Kirk think that MLK is a bad guy? When Kirk says that MLK says, quote, one good thing he didn't believe, what does he mean by that? Why does Kirk believe passing the Civil Rights Act was a mistake? Now, again, apparently they don't listen to the show because we do that at least once a week, right? Once a week, we talk about why the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. We note in our...
Oh. Michael?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is my interest. Well, he's not explaining his position. He's clearly
and I was not going to listen to his show to find out, so...
Yeah, he's clearly not comfortable in it, but he did tweet also. On Monday was Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday or day.
Mm-hmm.
And he tweeted, which caught my attention, who was MLK? A myth has been created and has grown totally out of control. While he was alive, most people disliked him. This is a very common argument about from his detractors, that people disliked him when he was alive. Yet today he is the most honored, worshipped, even deified person of the 20th century. Today we are going to tell the truth and explain how this myth was born. Happy Monday, with no explanation.
Well, to his first point, I mean, we can run through the list of figures who were disliked when they were alive, only to be liked by the general public, only to be liked after their death. I mean, whether true or not, which, yeah, I do think a number of people dislike MLK. Even some of the people who worked with him said he was tough to work with. But I don't take that as a legitimate argument for his position today. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Trump is disliked by a majority of people, and Charlie Kirk is a Trump sycophant. So how is that an argument? So I have found because I'm a big fan of MLK.
And just so you know, if you think he put that there for this show, please go back and watch the other 13 episodes we've done.
He put it there right before the first show, so he's been waiting for this topic.
It was there long before that. And the criticism I get often is that he cheated on his wife, so it's the moral, which is true, but so did Trump. So that's not disqualifying based on Charlie Kirk standards, if we're using the Charlie Kirk standards, and that he was a socialist, which is also untrue. Those are the two things I hear from the right most often about MLK. So if those two things are untrue, what is the real reason? And I'm not really sure what the real reason is.
Are you not sure?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, black man, because he started a huge social movement that forced significant change in the country that at the time was opposed by Democrats. So I don't really get the politics of it. Doesn't really make sense to me. But my argument about JFK is MLK, is he planted the seeds, or at least watered the seeds of that America First stuff they're spouting today. The dude, in all of his speeches, and I went back and read a little bit so I was prepared for this, but the guy lionized the founding fathers. The way he talks about the documents that the conservative wing talks about all the time, he thought they were an inspiration. He was just like, we aren't meeting up to their standards. I'll see if I can find one of these quotes here that I wrote down. But so for the first thing is, he loved the Constitution and the country and the vision for the country. We just hadn't met it. That was his argument. He was fighting for freedom, which is he wasn't fighting for equity like the crazy leftists today. He was fighting for freedom, for people to be free, which is also something conservatives proclaim to be for. And then the third thing, he was anti-war. This guy's the most important anti-war activist in the history of our country. He said there are three things I'm fighting against: racism, which existed, Jim Crow, terrorizing black people in the South. We largely stamped that out, right? Largely, it's still going to exist. It's always going to exist, but we largely stand that out. Second one, carpet bombing little brown people in Vietnam. We haven't dealt with that one. But even so, like, the MAGA movement is all about, like, why are we fighting all these wars overseas when we have all these problems at home? And then the third thing that I think, Republicans and conservatives can resonate with him is, dude was targeted by the deep state, probably killed by the FBI. So I don't really get, I know I'm going on a long rant. I don't really get why they dislike him, but if they actually read what he wrote about, it's pretty much what we're talking about today. And I'll end my rant on this one quote that I found in the book. I got a bunch of them, but America must begin the struggle for democracy at home before it goes overseas. Quote. It's America first.
I'm glad you went on that rant, because I know that you're a big MLK fan, and I wanted to hear what you had to say, because I wholeheartedly agree with everything you said. One of the things that I find really interesting is that there is this alignment. So with the targeting of the FBI, it's very interesting how, conservatives feel that same way about the FBI and other governmental institutions. But when you look at things like January 6th and the George Floyd protests, right? Immediately after the George Floyd protests, when there were riots and people in those protests said that there were, agents embedded who initiated things like that, the right was like, that can't be true. And then immediately after January 6th, the right was saying, well, there were people embedded to do the same thing. It's the same thing. There's this narrative there where when one group of people says something, the right automatically wants to push back against it, despite believing inherently the same thing in many instances. They just feel a need to push back for whatever reason. Charlie Kirk previously praised MLK. At Turning Point USA events, he had pictures of MLK up there. I mean, he's referenced him, saying he was a great civil rights leader. Yes, you can change your position on things, but you should probably go into great depth into explaining why you're changing such a position like this. And then the same thing with the right with the DEI thing. Everybody hates DEI or hates, kind of forced inclusion, but yet Charlie Kirk and TPUSA launched Blexit, and conservatives loved Blexit because it meant that we were going to get black people to vote Republican. But now we don't want to talk about that. And we don't want to talk about identity politics anymore either, but only when we're talking about the percentage of Latinos that are actually voting Republican, or how we're going to use our messaging to get into black communities. But outside of that, we can't talk about identity politics. And so it's this back and forth, and it's not an honest or thoughtful position. It is just kind of reactionary to what they feel is the woke left. And they're kind of twisting their beliefs to oppose that and ignoring a whole host of things that we should not be ignoring. And so it's incredibly frustrating to watch.
I would say, I mean, was MLK, they say he was a communist, he a serial philanderer, the Civil Rights Act, and would he be supportive of DEI and all the other stuff? I don't know. I don't know enough. Like, I don't have a picture of MLK on my wall. I'm sorry, Michael Searle. Or should I be saying sorry, Charles? I don't know. But I think that probably what's going on, and some people have said this, is, the left has taken down historical figures, tearing down statues, and they're, at one point they're even going after, some of the founding fathers, right? And Virginia University is taking down Jefferson's statue or whatever the hell, right? And so this is sort of a response. Okay, if you want to play by that game, and we're going to, make people live up to the standards of today when they lived in a totally different time, then this is what's going to happen. We're going to take down people like MLK. I don't think it's a smart move. I think it's dumb. I don't know if he, like I said, I don't know if he was a communist. I think it's established that he was a philanderer. I don't really give a shit. Fine. All right. He cheated on his wife. That's not cool, but whatever. The civil rights lead to some pretty crazy stuff, like trans people in bathrooms. Yeah, kind of. It seems like it. But this is not, this is a weird thing to fight. The legacy of MLK is, I I think, a cherished American legacy. And I think we all celebrate him for, pushing past in a very difficult time, pushing past the racial divide. And no one gives a shit that he was a philanderer. Nobody cares. No one even knows that. Right? We all look at it as like, yeah, he wanted, black and white people to get along is the story. It's super simplified, but that's what kids learn. So why are you fighting that? What do you hope to gain? You just make yourself look like an asshole.
And it gets them a lot of retweets. I mean, it's really that simple. And I think to your point, though, it's Matt Walsh made a similar point on Twitter about how the left has gone after these figures. And if we're going to count every single thing they did, then we have to do that for MLK. Sure, that's fine. But at the same time, as the left goes after some of these figures, even if we're just talking about Confederate figures or whatever, the right's defending them vehemently. So what's your argument here? And I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to kind of Matt Walsh or whoever. But what's the argument here that we should defend some and not others? And then you see this kind of back and forth. I mean, and I listed the issues before, but even with things like Juneteenth, when Trump supported Juneteenth, the right supported Juneteenth. Now that Trump's out of office, Juneteenth is like terrible, and we should not be supporting Juneteenth. Lift Every Voice, which has long been considered the quote unquote Black national anthem, as far as, well before I was born, but as from the moment I was born, I knew that, is now an issue because suddenly it's like, how dare Black people have a national anthem? And that's not even like effectively what it means, but it's reactionary to what they deem, I guess, as an erasure of their culture, I guess, I don't know, or just reaction to the wokeism, but it's not thoughtful, and that's the frustrating part. If you had a thoughtful argument to oppose some of this stuff, okay, but how can I have a conversation when all you're doing is reacting to stuff, which you often say the left does because they care about feelings more than facts, but now you're doing the same thing.
Well, I will say if he was a communist, then I could maybe understand getting behind, all right, this is not a great person to celebrate, but you brought up the Black national anthem.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you know this, Charles. I'm not Black. I know, surprising. It surprises most people when I say that.
I'm caught off guard.
And it surprises Black people the most.
Color me shocked.
So I educate me, because I remember the controversy somewhat recently of the Black national anthem. I genuinely had no idea. I haven't looked into it, but it really is that old?
Oh yeah, I mean the song is from 1870 something. I mean it's a very old song, and it's a hymn. So it's very old, but yes, and it goes way back. Any Black church in this country will sing it. I mean, you will hear it, maybe not every Sunday, but you will certainly hear it. And you will certainly learn every word to it. And essentially, it's just kind of like a freedom anthem that encouraged Black people to push back against the oppression of that day, and of today as well. But it was uplifting, and it was encouraging, and something they used to rally around. And so it became the Black national anthem because Black people embraced it. So, but yes, to answer your question specifically, yeah, it's that old. I can't remember.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt. They play it. You're a Black kid going to a Black church. You hear it from from when you're very young. Do they describe it as the Black national anthem, or do they describe it as something else? Like, is that a term that's always been used?
It is a term it's actually it was originally called the Negro National Anthem, but yes, Black National Anthem is the term that has often
kicked off YouTube.
What's that?
You're trying to get us kicked off YouTube. It's not a bad. I'm confused about that, and I think
Negro. I mean, you don't call someone that, of course, but is it a bad word? You're going to ask?
Yeah, it's a bad word, right? I mean, I know that if I called someone a Negro, can I call Michael a Negro?
You shouldn't call anyone that. But... Right.
If I called someone that, I understand that that's a bad word, but I don't, or derogatory and everything. Obviously, I think that's obvious. But in these situations where it's like you're talking about, I don't know, the Negro national anthem, like, is that something that's offensive? I genuinely don't know what to say in those situations.
Right. So, okay. So Negro was a better, more polite or delicate way of saying colored person. So like colored person was offensive. So then Negro came around. And so you had the Negro baseball league, the Negro national anthem, and things like that. But since we've since moved on, now, I don't know, black person is what Negro was to colored person, if you will.
Sure.
And so you don't use it anymore, but yes, in reference to things like the Negro National Anthem, but we call it the Black National Anthem now, or the Negro League, you could say that, but you wouldn't call someone that.
Yeah, naturally. I don't.
I know you wouldn't. I'm just.
Yeah, I don't want the listeners to think that Brad's walking around calling people Negroes. That's not happening, and I've never done that. But I don't. I just and these. I can't remember the context where I asked Ora Houston the same question, but I didn't know. I don't know when that. Whatever. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Yes. But yeah, so I mean, going way back, it's been the song, and conservatives took issue with it in 2020, 2019, after having it be around since 18. I did Google, it's 1871, and has been called that since, I don't even know, they don't have a date. 1917 is when it was dubbed the Negro National Anthem. So since 1917, it's been called that. Every single black person knew that, but I guess conservatives found out 3 years ago, and it became a huge issue.
Well, anyhow, probably something to do with all the other national anthem stuff that has been going on.
Yeah,
that it became an issue.
You guys, that was a compelling explanation from both of you about why it's become an issue. The MLK has become an issue on the right. It's just reactionary. That makes sense. I always look at these things so logically. I'm like reading the dude's words. And I'm like, what's wrong with what he's saying? Freedom is indivisible. We have it all, or we are not free. Yeah, I agree with that. So that was a compelling explanation for me.
But that's how you should look at stuff, right? And I mean, I think conservatives long have prided themselves on looking at things in that way, and that is not the case anymore.
No.
Well,
for a lot of stuff. I mean, not everything, but